Welcome back to Steel City Drones. Today we're doing a long overdue video, and we're going to compare the Dji M30T to the Autel Evo Max 4T. These are very similar aircraft. So the number one question that we get is, what, if anything, is the most comparable to the DJI Dji M30T platform? And that is this aircraft right here, the Max 4T. So how do they compare? What are the strengths of each, the features, the functionality? So first thing everybody likes to talk about is cost. Now, with the DJI aircraft, we used to be as low as, for a combo kit, which was the aircraft, the remote controller, a pair of batteries, the protection plan, the case, we were at $96.37. Well, now things have changed significantly. I could very easily tell you what the price is today, but that very well could change tomorrow, in a month, 3 months. Anybody that's going to watch this video in 6 months could potentially have a completely different cost. So therefore, all I can tell you is please call us for the current pricing. Whereas the Evo Max 4T here is priced at $9,000, and that is the basic combo that you get with this aircraft. So to start off with, both of these aircraft can be used for a wide variety of applications, making them very versatile. They can be used from everything from inspections, search and rescue, security and surveillance, deer recovery, pet rescue, and mapping. Now, when we talk about mapping, we got to go ahead and really drill down to what that means, because everybody has their own different perceptions of what that means. So, both of these drones can do mapping. Both of them can produce orthomosaics and 3D models. Both of them can do autonomous flights for all the use cases that I mentioned. But when we start talking about survey grade applications, that's where the Autel has the advantage. So with the Autel Mapper software, we can go ahead and take a data set and get centimeter level of accuracy, where the Dji M30T cannot do that. So that's where they split down the line, and the Autel has the advantage. The next thing we want to talk about is the overall airframe differences, the size, and the needed accessories to be able to fly. So we have 3 aircraft here, and as you can see, the Evo Max 4T is smaller than the Dji M30T, but it is a little larger than your Dji 4 or your typical Mavic type of aircraft. So both of these, you have a case that fits in just about any size car very easily. But the Dji M30T has a separate battery charging station that is needed, that comes in its own separate kind of a case. Whereas the Autel does not need that. And they have a separate charger. We'll talk about the chargers in a minute as far as the differences between that goes, but you don't have to carry a separate charger around. But there are advantages to the charger here. So with the Dji M30T's charger, we can fit 8 batteries in that. It will charge 1 pair at a time, but also it has a fast charge mode where we can get, let's say you get up in the air, you get the actual batteries are down to 20%. From 20% to 90% in fast charge mode, it's going to be about 25 minutes. Now with that, this does not have any of those type of capabilities. Because if you think about it, you can really get away with 3 sets of batteries for continuous operation. Because if you land after the first set is dead, you start charging them right away, those batteries are almost ready by the time you're going to land after the second set's done. So you don't really need a whole heck of a lot of batteries for having this. So it all boils down to individual needs and what's going to work and what you can get away with for your own applications. So when we're talking about the size of the aircraft, everybody is focused on portability. But in all reality, both of these aircraft are portable. But one consideration that most people overlook when they're thinking about the size of the aircraft is that the larger the aircraft, the better for flying and overall being able to see the aircraft line of sight for further distances away. An aircraft like this, we can see this aircraft reasonably well at about 1,300 feet away. And now the smaller we get, the less you're going to be able to see that aircraft clearly or reasonably. Obviously, everybody has their own differences of what they think is reasonable line of sight, and some people think that if I see it and it's just a small dot, that's good enough for me. So an aircraft like this is going to have a little less line of sight overall compared to the Matrice 30T. Is it significantly different? I would say no. And with an aircraft the size of basically of a Mavic, you're going to start losing line of sight, what I would consider to be reasonable line of sight in the sky, as much as 300 to 400 feet away. So the larger the aircraft, the further we can be able to see that. You know, if we had the Matrice 350 here, we would also be able to say that aircraft can be seen reasonably the furthest away out of all these aircraft. So it's a matter of pilot preference as far as what they like to see in an aircraft of what size. The next consideration that I would like to talk about is the IP rating of these aircraft. Now, with the Matrice 30T, we have an IP rating of IP54. With the Autel Max 4T, we are looking at a rating of 43. So there is some limitations here that the Autel has compared to the Matrice 30T. We can basically fly in any conditions with the Matrice 30T, rain or snow. Doesn't really matter how hard it's raining, doesn't really matter how hard it's snowing. It can handle it. With the Autel, with that IP rating, they really go ahead and go into like the angle and the size. There's a lot that factors into that. And I've always all along, say with the IP43 rating, you can go ahead and fly in the rain, but it really needs to be limited to light precipitation and also not flying very fast. So flying slow and light precipitation is what this is able to handle. The next consideration to talk about is the overall flight performance and how much wind can these drones handle. I would say we are in good shape with both. They both fly very well and they're both very stable that exceed the minimum considerations for what I would consider. On the X and Y, they are both very planted. Again, these are both meeting and exceeding what I would consider to be our own standards, what we have here, and those are very high. The next consideration to look at is the overall cameras on the platforms. Both drones use what's called an all-in-one camera payload, which has a thermal camera, an RGB camera, and a rangefinder. Now, where they differ is that with the 30T, it has two different RGB cameras. It has a separate wide camera and a separate zoom camera. And that has some definite advantages because we can then go ahead and switch back and forth from wide to all the way zoomed in very, very quickly just with changing and hitting a button. Whereas with the Max 4T, it uses one RGB camera, which you can zoom all the way in and out, but it's not switching between the two cameras like this is. Now, with the 30T, this payload camera is not interchangeable with anything else. Whereas the 4T, you can interchange the camera actual assembly with the 4N's camera assembly. Now with the 4N, N stands for nighttime. So they have some twilight type of camera features that are built into that the 30T does not. So the Autel Max 4T has those nighttime features available if you want to switch out the camera sensor. So in my opinion, while you can interchange those camera sensors, I really don't see the need for it. One, it's very expensive to be able to purchase the separate payload. I would just prefer that I would look for the features that are most important to me, whether it's the 4N or the 4T, and just buy that version of the aircraft that has that camera sensor. They're all very close and similar, and definitely on the thermal side, they are both 640 by 512, and they both have isotherm capabilities. Now, on the zoom side is where it varies a little bit that I want to talk about. So what we decided to do was a zoom test, and I'm going to show you what we did now. So for this zoom test, we have 4 drones that we're going to compare. We got the Matrice 30T, we have the Autel Evo Max 4T, we got the new Matrice 4E Enterprise, as well as the older DJI Mavic 3 Pro. Now, the only thing that we can't do to keep everything consistent is the Mavic 3 Pro does not have a rangefinder on there. So we're going to go ahead and use the rangefinder as the actual distance. And we're going to take these drones far away from the van and the license plate on the van as far as possible and see what the maximum that we can get as far as reading that license plate. And that's going to give us a really good baseline for all 4 of these drones. Let's get started. So the first aircraft that we tested was the Mavic 3 Pro. Now, we couldn't be as very precise with that test because there's no rangefinder on there. So all we can do is a best estimate. So with the drone and the zoom camera all the way out as far as it can go on 7x, we were really kind of limited to being able to see the license plate around 315 feet away. The next aircraft that we chose to test was the Matrice 4 Enterprise, which has a much improved zoom camera. We were able to see and read that license plate with it being on the edge of 673 feet away. Next up was the Autel Evo Max 4T. We were able to read that license plate right on the edge of 556 feet away. And last but not least, we had the Matrice 30T zoom camera, which performed the best out of the 4. We were able to read the license plate from 860 feet away. Again, that's really pushing each of these platforms to the edge. I would say that if you need a drone for crowd surveillance, event monitoring, all of these platforms, as far as the enterprise line of drones, between the 30T, the Max 4T, and also even the Matrice 4E, all fit that bill well. But by far, the Matrice 30T had the best zoom capability. So next, we're going to talk about remote controllers. As you can see, they are very similar in size. They weigh very noticeably about the same, and they both have very similar size screens, both approximately 7 inches in size. Now, let's talk about some of the contrasts. I would say that I give the Autel the leading edge here for overall brightness. It is spec'd to 2000 nits compared to 1400 with the RC Plus remote here. Now, that is a big consideration for working in the daytime, because that is one of the main reasons why we make custom-built monitors for high bright applications. So if you're going to be doing a lot of work in the sun, then this definitely has the leading edge. Now, Hoodman makes a very nice monitor hood for this that's magnetic and fits right on the top and helps minimize the differences. Now, where we give the edge to the RC Plus remote here is that in here we have a rechargeable battery that we can add so we can operate this remote controller continuously. With the Autel remote controller, there is no ability for an external battery. We can only charge the internal battery, which lasts, I would say, approximately 4 hours. And I say approximately because with both remote controllers and any remote controller, depending upon your settings, to be able to go into that it turns off automatically after a certain period of time, and or the brightness settings, those will also all lead to how much overall battery time that you're going to get with the remote controllers. Now, with the RC Plus remote controller, it has all these dedicated hotkeys that you can switch between cameras very fast, as well as the zoom controls on the front. You can switch between cameras very easily, and then we also have more finite control with the zoom capabilities, and then we also can pan the camera as well. So overall, and there's more buttons on here that can be customized, it's better. With that said, I don't want to take away from the Autel's remote because it does do the basic functions and everything is kind of where you kind of expect it traditionally. We have our 2 jog wheels right here on the sides, just like the RC Plus remote controller. And we have the ability to go ahead and take pictures and record. So we don't have to necessarily use the app for that. And we have 2 customizable C1 and C2 buttons as well. So with that said, there is customization to this. Nevertheless, they are both very good remote controllers. So now let's talk about the flight app. With DJI, they have had their enterprise app out the longest, and it is the most polished. With that said, I don't want to take away from the Autel brand either. The Autel app is very good. It has very similar features and layouts of where things are. While I would think if you are used to the DJI platform, I would say it's not going to be a huge adjustment. This app has a lot of features and functionality built into it with a lot of customization that we can fine-tune a lot of different parameters, just like the Pilot 2 can. So again, I have tested a lot of aircraft and a lot of flight apps, and I tell you what, I am very specific and particular of what I like to use, obviously, but trying to keep things as, unbiased as possible. Autel has done a very good job with what they have and how they've been able to design this flight app. They've also been around for quite some time now, so they've had the ability to polish this as well. They're not new kids on the block here. So let me talk about the few things that I noticed the differences with. The first is with the Autel, they are not using a wide camera and a separate zoom camera. It is all one camera. So when you zoom in, it's going to take you a minute. If you need to get back to wide, it's going to take you a few seconds to be able to get and zoom that back out because it's one camera. Now, they do have hot buttons here that you can go ahead and hit to go to very specific zoom levels. But again, it still has to mechanically zoom that camera in and out. So it is a little bit of a delay. Now, with the Matrice 30T, we have specific cameras. So we can be very zoomed in on the zoom camera, hit a button, and then go be fully wide out. Again, that's me being more critical than anything and pointing out some kind of a difference. As far as accessories go, both aircraft have available spotlights and spotlight speaker combos that you can use for search and rescue, security and surveillance, pet rescue, and or deer recovery. the Matrice 30T also has a feature what's called Smart Track that has the ability to lock in on a moving target, and then once locked in, that camera is going to automatically follow and track the object that you have selected, and it's automatically going to do the panning and the tilting and the zooming to be able to stay in on that. With the Autel, we don't have that, but what they have is what's called recon mode. We can go ahead and see visually where vehicles are, moving vehicles are, and it can also see where other objects are as well. The range of both remote controllers to the drone is identical. It's over 9 miles of range, so both have outstanding range as far as that goes. Now, let's talk about RTK. Both aircraft are RTK compatible. Now, what that means is we still have to give the drones RTK services. And that's always a big misunderstanding for people. They think that if it has these RTK built-in modules that are on the aircraft, that's all we need. That is not the case. We either have to give it a base station and or an end-trip service provider. With the Autel, it is optional. It does not come standard. So you can get a 1-puck receiver, put it on top of the drone, and it will have RTK compatibility. This already comes with it. Now, there is one main difference between these two aircraft. The M30T has 2-puck antennas, where the Autel has a 1-puck optional antenna. So there's a difference between 1-puck and 2-pucks. Now, I'm not going to get too technical here because we have a full video on that. If you really want to know more about RTK and how it works, we have a really, really good video on that I think that you would really find very helpful. But overall, just in a very broad comparison, a 1-puck antenna system will only help with positioning. A 2-puck RTK system can help with positioning as well as provide electromagnetic and magnetic protection, which is very important for inspection capabilities. So with a RTK system like this, we could literally be 6-8 inches away from a 750,000 volt power line, and that electromagnetics from those power lines would not interfere with this flight. So there is small differences between the RTK systems on there that I just wanted to point out. Next, let's talk about the batteries. So with the Matrice 30T, it takes 2 batteries. These are the size of the batteries. With the Autel 4T, it takes 1 battery. Now, both aircraft have hot swapping capabilities. So what we would do with the Matrice 30T is we would just take off one at a time, replace it, and up in the air that we go back up. With the Autel, what we can do is we can pull this out, put the new one in, it still stays powered up, put the new one back in, and we're ready to go as well. So this has, in my opinion, very cool technology here that I hope that other manufacturers start really applying in here. Now, we can't go ahead and pull this out and say, wait a minute later, look for a battery and do that. There's a limited time that we have here that we have to get that new one in there. But nevertheless, that's a very cool feature that the Autel has. The last main difference that I want to talk about is that the Matrice 30T has a built-in FPV camera. The Autel does not have an FPV camera. Now, in my opinion, I have never seen the need to have an FPV camera. Really, it's just more for, kind of what the aircraft's doing and how much wind really is, because if the actual aircraft is tilting maybe at 20 degrees, you have a lot of wind. But really, I really feel that in today's technology, and especially the way we teach people how to fly, we don't rely on FPV cameras at all. So in my opinion, it's not any big deal at all, but I do want to point out that this aircraft does have an FPV camera and this doesn't. Now, let's talk about where these aircraft are made and what kind of parts that they have in them. When we talk to customers on the phone, there's a lot of incorrect perceptions and information out there that I want to make sure that we are completely clear about. So with the Dji M30T, like everything with DJI, it is mostly made of DJI's own parts that they make in-house in China. And there may be some other parts that are not Chinese parts, but they're mostly Chinese-based parts in here. And they are, again, they're made and manufactured in China. With the Autel brand, what we have here is an aircraft that is made in Vietnam, and it is a mixture of different parts, and including some are American-made parts on here. So it's a blend, but they're not all American-made. So to conclude, both of these aircraft are very good aircraft. They fit many use cases very well. And we stand behind both platforms and both companies because I can't say that with others. We do a lot of testing, and a lot of the aircraft that we do test don't fit our minimum requirements for us to be able to put our name behind them. And that's a very important thing for us. And when I'm talking to a customer and I recommend something, I want to make sure that I feel very confident in what I'm recommending. I don't want someone to come back afterwards and say, man, why in the world did you recommend this aircraft to us? So, but I wanted to point out, even small differences between the aircraft, so that way you can figure out what's going to work for your needs, so that way you can make the best decision possible. So with that said, if you have any questions about anything that we've gone over, or maybe something that we did not cover, please give us a call. We'll be glad to talk to you more in depth about your own use cases of what you think that you need, and we can give you pricing as well. So again, thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.